Hey everyone, this is Nick and this is my fourth video this week, so forgive me if I look tired. So this week we have the Linux kernel version 6.4 with big improvements for AMD CPUs in terms of power management and performance. We have some more details about the free and open source driver for Nvidia GPUs called NVK, and we have some interesting GNOME developments to make gaming on Wayland way smoother. Plus, we have some more Red Hat related drama, we have some interesting gaming related news, and we have this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Linode. Linode is the only solution I use to run my own Nextcloud server and my OnlyOffice server as well. It's a super easy solution to deploy basically anything you want in one click. They have a huge marketplace of applications you can host, from Nextcloud, WordPress, Drupal, GitLab or Grafana, to gaming servers for Minecraft, Ark, CSGO, Rust, Valheim and more. They take care of all the configuration for you. All you have to do is click the thing you want to deploy, fill in a few details, and your server is up and running. And once everything is live, it's still super easy to manage your servers, to upgrade or downgrade them, add some storage, back them up, and get help if you're stuck. I've been using Linode for years now, and I can only recommend them. If you want to give them a shot, click the link in the description below, and you'll get $100 of free credits to get started. So, the Linux kernel version 6.4 is now out. The headline change is support for AMD guided autonomous mode, something AMD uses for EPYC and Ryzen CPUs, to select a performance level automatically depending on the current workload. Basically, the OS will define a minimum and maximum performance level, and the CPU will then autonomously select the best frequency to use in this range, depending on what you're doing on your computer. It should result in better power efficiency and better performance for AMD CPUs, since the previous supported modes were either the OS decides everything or the CPU decides everything, which obviously didn't make use of all the available info to reach a good balance between performance and power usage. There is also now support for M2 chips from Apple, at least in some bare bones initial form. The support is similar to M1, so not every part of the chipset works, especially display output for the M2 Mac Mini. And it doesn't include support for Mac laptops and their internal peripherals either. It's just the CPU and GPU combo. So yeah, if you want Linux on Apple Silicon Macs, you still need Asahi Linux. Another big feature is improved sensor monitoring for 100 Asus motherboards for their Intel or AMD variants. This means all temperature sensors should work better and report more accurate information. File system formats got a few improvements as well, especially ext4, NTFS, and BetterFS, and there's support for a few more Intel-related features as well. And it really feels like AMD is the hardware manufacturer to go to if you're using Linux, if only because their driver support always gets better and the same peripherals you own keep getting more performance and more stability and better support as time goes on in a much wider capacity than other hardware manufacturers do. Now, we also have news from NVK, the fully open source Vulkan driver for Nvidia GPUs, that aims to be included in Mesa alongside Intel or AMD drivers. It's been under active development for 9 months, and it's now gained support for older Nvidia GPUs as well, from the Maxwell and the Kepler series. On top of that, the driver now supports geometry, tessellation, and transform feedback, as well as DXVK, with which Collabora actually managed to get some games running, like Hollow Knight and F1 2017. Support for various Vulkan extensions also improved, and they're aiming to support the Vulkan spec up to version 1.3 in the very near future. Now, there is no time frame yet for when a usable, stable version of NVK would be available and part of Mesa, and they will also need a specific kernel API for it to work correctly. And it's very interesting, because it means that in a few years, at most, we'll actually have a native, fully functional Nvidia driver that can actually do more than just drive a display, like what Nouveau does. It's basically all it's good for these days, driving a display or playing a video. But you can't game on it, you can't really do any compute tasks on it. This new driver feels like it's going to be able to do that. And you'll still keep the proprietary Nvidia driver for a few use cases, for professional work, for OpenCL or CUDA probably, but for most people, the NVK driver will probably be enough to do anything at high performance. Now, GNOME is getting some pretty awesome optimizations for gaming, specifically on Wayland. Some code has been merged in Mutter, the GNOME compositor, to no longer block a specific method that was used to query for GPU timestamps. Since they don't need to do that anymore, this method doesn't need to be called again and again, and so stutters and missed frames should be reduced or could vanish entirely, and frame pacing should thus be much better. This change also makes variable refresh rate smoother on AMD GPUs, and it simplifies the whole code by about 200 lines, which is always nice, and it should make gaming on Wayland a lot smoother than it is, which is an important thing to move people to it. And of course, until Proton and Wine aren't Wayland native and still need X-Wayland to run any sort of game, you won't get the best performance possible, but it's still a very nice step to make sure that when Wine on Wayland finally lands, at least GNOME will be there and will support it correctly. On top of that, the GNOME team made progress on their libraries and apps, with libadwaita gaining a back button that lets you move back multiple steps in a stack. Tube Converter was renamed Parabolic, and it's still the same video downloading app with a bunch of nice features. iPlan, the to-do list and project management app, gained a chart of the time you spent on various projects. It's now more adaptive and works well on phones, and you can now prevent it from running in the background. GNOME Displays also gained a dbus interface, which now exposes the list of devices you can cast your screen to. The goal is to make GNOME Displays into a backend that other projects could use more easily, and it could then be integrated in any app, portal, or in the GNOME shell itself. So yeah, it's a smaller week than usual, but progress on GNOME apps has been so fast in the past year or so that you can't really be mad about this. Now, the KDE devs keep hacking away at Plasma 6, and they have overhauled the Plasma 6 info page with steps to use it and to test it. Plus, they have a few lists of bugs that people can look at to get started and speed up development. Krunner will have a new autocomplete behavior in Plasma 6 as well, that fills in what you're typing automatically and lets you accept the suggestion by hitting the right arrow key or the tab key. The keyboard indicator will also now display the state of caps lock and num lock, and the volume icon will now change color when you raise volume above 100%. Smaller improvements that will come to Plasma 5.27 and the current apps include a fix for GwenView, no longer crashing when opening .nef image files, a big performance fix for the Wayland session on Intel GPUs, the system monitor gaining support again for Nvidia devices using the 535 Nvidia drivers, and panels auto-hiding will no longer have a visual glitch when using a dark theme. And they also fixed 68 bugs of all kinds this week. So it's a smaller week on the KDE side as well, but I guess we're nearing the time period where people actually go on vacation. Did I mention that being a YouTuber makes me completely forget when the vacations are actually supposed to take place? Now, you might be familiar with the recent drama surrounding Red Hat and their approach to free software with the recent move to make it more difficult to rebuild a one-to-one version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I made my own position on this very clear in a dedicated video, but now the Software Freedom Conservancy, a way more credible source than myself, also did. They're a non-profit centered around making sure technology is done ethically, and that defends right to repair and free software. Generally, their work is around making sure that the GPL isn't violated. They published an exhaustive analysis of the recent move and various other moves Red Hat did pre- and post-IBM acquisition. They point out Red Hat previously violated the GPL twice, and that they have a history of skirting around the rights the GPL should grant their users. And the Free Software Conservancy's position seems to be that Red Hat spends their time in a territory that can only be described as probably doesn't violate the GPL. They qualify their business model and licensing terms for customers as murky, and they feel that they're playing on the fact that most consumers wouldn't really know or understand the GPL well enough to notice and report a violation. They also say that the recent move isn't necessarily a violation of the GPL, but that it compounds with past behavior to make Red Hat's compliance with the GPL really difficult to assess, especially since they will terminate a customer's contract if they decide to make use of certain GPL rights. In short, the SFC's position seems to be pretty much the same as the one I have, which is sure, Red Hat might not violate the GPL directly and they're following the word of the GPL, but they're definitely not following the spirit and the ethical philosophy of the free software movement. Now, as Fedora keeps working on their revamped Anaconda installer, it looks like it might land in Fedora 39. This new version is based on web technologies and is actually named Anaconda Web UI. And the proposal was made to make it the default in Fedora 39, so in October. This new installer isn't complete just yet, so it would be limited to Fedora Workstation and not the other editions and spins, because Workstation being the default, it's the use case that has been worked on the most. Anaconda Web UI uses React.js and the Cockpit framework, and the end goal is to have the exact same feature set as the current Anaconda, without sucking like the current Anaconda, which is a UI and UX nightmare. Of course, it is just a proposal for now, and it might be rejected, as it could be a little too soon for such a move, depending on how well development has progressed. I guess the Fedora 39 beta will be the judge of that, and they can always fall back to the previous working installer if the new one doesn't cut it yet. Judging from screenshots, it looks pretty nice and easy to understand. And seeing as Ubuntu took basically 2 or 3 years to make their own new revamped installer, if Fedora can deliver theirs in less than a year, then people are going to start to wonder what Canonical is actually doing. And let's finish this with the gaming news, and there's a lot to discuss here. First, the AMD driver for GPUs, which is called RADV, gained support for a feature called Fragment Shader Interlock, and while I have no idea what this does, it looks like it's used by DXVK, VKD3D, and a lot of emulators, like Ryujin X, Xenia, the Xbox 360 emulator, and a lot more, including some specific games like A Plague Tale Requiem. So basically, as I understand it, it should make Linux gaming using AMD GPUs better. Still on the topic of graphics, Valve hired another graphic driver developer, Alessa Rosenzweig, who works on reverse engineering the Apple Silicon GPU driver, and also worked on Panfrost, the ARM Mali GPU driver. She joins Valve's team to work on Linux graphics drivers, Proton, GameScope, and other critical Valve projects for the Steam Deck and their gaming vision. Which might indicate that either they're gonna start working on new hardware projects to work on new drivers to support that, or on a specific new revision of the Steam Deck, or just that they want more hands on deck to work on the current Steam Deck, but that seems very unlikely since this architecture is pretty well mastered these days. I don't think they would need another full-time position to improve the drivers for this device specifically. And as per Wayland support on Wine, we have the next part of that work being merged into Wine. This latest batch of code should give all the bare minimum feature sets to display the contents of a window using a software renderer, implying that graphical acceleration isn't there yet. These windows can't be interacted with just yet, so it's really just being able to display something. Still, the work is moving along nicely and it should land in Wine 8.12. And I've been trying to game on Wayland on my main editing rig for the past few weeks, and I can say that the performance difference is really not noticeable, but you do notice a lot of issues with frame pacing, like the FPS isn't as smooth as on X11. On the other hand, this sponsor segue is as smooth as ever. If you're a Linux user and you plan to replace your computer, stop looking at devices that only support Windows officially. Buy something that actually supports Linux. From today's sponsor, Tuxedo. They have a big range of devices that will cover every need and every price point, whether you need a laptop, a desktop, a gaming device, just an ultrabook, anything. All devices are very customizable, you can really spec them to your liking, they have multiple colors, you can have your own logo on the lid, your own keyboard layout if you prefer, and while they're based in Germany, they do ship to a lot of countries in the world. All their laptops are also openable, repairable, and upgradable. They offer a decent selection of Ubuntu-based distributions that you can pre-install, or you can just slap your own distribution on it and things will run perfectly. So if you need to replace your computer and you plan to run Linux on it, don't buy a Windows PC, buy a Linux PC from Tuxedo. So thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, or to write a comment. And if you didn't like the video, there's always that thumbs down button which you can click and let me know why in the comments as well. And if you really enjoy the channel, well, there are plenty of ways to support it down there in the description. There's LiberaPay, PayPal, Patreon, YouTube memberships, YouTube thanks, whatever. You know how this works. So thanks everyone for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!